ourselves easily to being branded in that sort of way. And that's the conclusion I've come to. You know, I've thought about it even afterwards. As you know, I work with WWF in South Africa now. WWF is good at branding, easy, good, blah, blah, blah. But we just choose a few things, we do that, you know, and then, you know, it's like, it lends itself to that. And somebody should do that. There's a role for people to do that sort of thing. You know, if you're going to do the hard slog of scientific work, and if you're going to do the hard slog of the law commission's work, unfortunately, it's just not going to be that sexy for the media. But it's so much needed, and it's so important for that work to be done. So I don't think we're going to become a household name, and I don't think we need to become a household name. We made a huge impact in the past 60 years or so without being a household name. And maybe because we're not a household name. Because part of what you have to do is that if we're now going to become that kind of popular brand, then we will have to do popular things. Like, for example, you know, there's an earthquake in New Zealand today, and tomorrow morning we will have to be ready to link that to climate change and global warming, and say, you see what's happening? These people are burning carbon, that's why. But we won't say that as the IUCN, because we have no scientific basis to make such a statement whatsoever. But that's what the media wants. Yeah. They want somebody to say it's linked to climate change, or every tropical storm, or every thunderstorm. You know, we actually can't do that because, you know, we don't do things at that. It's not science based. It just takes longer and with much more qualifications when you have to be rational about what you say. But that is our strength. And I think the marketing and branding, we still should do marketing and branding, but we should do it to the people who are our stakeholders. I think that's where you want governments, government department, government links, agencies to know and understand what we do and to support us. You want a critical mass of moneyed institutions in the private sector to know that, so that they would give us money now and then because we need it, you know. And you would want people in the legal fraternity to know what it is. So that marketing and branding needs to go amongst the people that we are. NGOs need to understand us better. We're not an environmental NGO competing with other environmental NGOs. We're there for the issue-based environmental NGOs to feed off. That's what we are there for. And the locally and regionally based NGOs to feed off us. That's what we are. That's my comment on that after. Yeah.
Let me also add to Julia's question. First of all, I don't agree it's a best kept secret because academically, in the academic world, IUCN is very well known. IUCN has been known for a long time from my own early academic work, particularly work of the commissions, the species that all the commissions want. Once IUCN gave birth to WWF, obviously WWF is attractive to people because you tiger, elephant, many panda and so on. And I once asked Catherine Fuller, when I saw her annual report, the amount of money first she was getting at WWF, she said no problem at all. Many people write in the bill, I give my money to WWF, United States, for saving this animal or saving these animals. So obviously, but one has to look at the totality, both the IUCN and WWF. One is the academic counterpart. The scientific soundness of IUCN's recommendations have been very well appreciated. And also the Law Center and the Conservation Monitoring Center, Cambridge, which later on became because of financial problems with our UNAP and so on. That was, the Red Data book was certainly still the authoritative question of coming. So I would say we should maintain the scientific integrity and the scientific dependability of the conclusions and recommendations by IUCN. That is the latest contribution, because that is needed. The science underpinning conservation, conservation science is a very important contribution of IUCN. Your question about when you asked, when did you, I asked myself, I was looking at, I have not thought about it, but I think it was one of the earliest impressions I had about the one was when I was a student of zoology and so on. Trips used to have the academic trips. One was the Gulf of Mannar Biosphere Reserve. It's a beautiful coral reef. I have seen it regeneration. It used to be full of dugongs and so on. Fascinating ecosystem. But unfortunately, we tried to revive it, but a lot of damage has been done. The other one are the Ramsar sites. The Ramsar sites of the IUCN, they are really remarkable areas where if anybody interested, I have seen my children also were fascinated by how the Siberian crane comes almost on an appointed day to a place near Agra, Bharatpur, a bird sanctuary. And Salim Ali, Dr. Salim Ali, a great ornithologist, chronicled how the Siberian, by ringing the birds, and how the Siberian, and so you start looking at nature, how these birds go such long distances at a appointed time for brooding and so on. I think God, but if you don't have either seeing eye or understanding art, you cannot but love nature. You have to love nature. But let me also say one point about the other part of my love was the biodiversity of economic value. That started my PhD work in Cambridge was on potatoes. I read a book by Dr. Solomon, Aaron Solomon, The Social History of Potato, the whole Irish famine, the potato famine, how it occurred. And it's a fascinating story. But the main conclusion is genetic homogeneity was responsible for such large-scale destruction by the late blight, Phytophthora infestans, late blight of potato. And he concluded by saying, what is important is to have a survey of the whole Andean region, collect potatoes. And both apart from Vavilov, who started collecting the centers of origin and diversity, also the British, what was called Empire, potato collecting expedition by Dr. J.G. Hawkes from the University of Birmingham. Enormous amount of genetic variability. In my own country, we are the number one producer of potato in Asia. We produce more potato than the whole of Latin America, which is the home of the potato, largely because of the varieties you have developed. Without the genetic variability obtained from the Andean region, you could not have developed. I am happy in the new listing called the Globally Important Agricultural Heritage Sites. FAO has started a new policy of recognizing agricultural heritage, just as UNESCO recognizes natural and cultural heritage sites. One of the sites is the island of Chiloe of Chile, which was the home of the original white potato, which came to Europe and so on. So the Irish potato famine is always a constant reminder of the fact that genetic homogeneity leads to total loss of crops in the case of Europe. So when you work with nature, whether it is on the agrobiodiversity side or the biodiversity side, the Ramsar sites particularly are the ones which young children can get fascinated about the beauty of birds and their ability to travel over long distances.
Thank you. On Dominique's question, basically, I guess it's in my DNA. I grew up in Kashmir, where nature is all around you and you couldn't get away from it. Part of one's life, and I've never been able to fall out of love with nature. Dr. Swaminathan and Ravi have basically given almost verbatim the same answer as I would have given regarding the visibility and profile of IUCN, except for one thing. What they indicated, and I think I would have said also, is that a union as complex as this has very many different constituencies, research constituencies, government to be influenced, NGOs, a variety of other kinds of partners and constituencies, and you have to deal with them in different ways. For the scientific community around the world, a lot of fame is anathema. They don't like to have to go to press conferences and talk to the world and get all kinds of flack for what they do. They prefer a certain degree of anonymity. From the point of view of selling our wares to other organizations, you have to have credibility, which comes with a lot of visibility. As president of IUCN, as councilman for many, many years, I was often struck by the fact that even ministers of environment occasionally I ran into at the UN conference and so on. I hadn't heard of IUCN. I couldn't quite register. May have heard of it, but hadn't registered it fully to be able to make any sense out of it. And this has led me to believe, and I've had long discussions with not just Julia, but with the council on this, that the name is crucial. A name is almost more important than even the substance in some ways. I'll tell you my own experiences, two of them, which reinforced that a lot. I put myself through graduate school by selling encyclopedias door to door. And for the first 8 or 9 days that I started selling encyclopedias, I couldn't get into it. There was no way. It was in New England. I used to go to Massachusetts and Maine and Connecticut, and there was no way I could sell an encyclopedia. I couldn't get in the door to sell. And my manager said, you go to Harvard, you're an intelligent guy. How come these guys are selling 2 every night and you can't sell a single one? Tell me what you say. So I got up there and I started giving my spiel, and I said, I knocked on the door, and I said, hi there, my name is Ashok Khosla. He said, oh, you lost it all. He said, you gotta change your name, otherwise there's no way you'll ever sell it. I changed it to Tony. And by the end of the week, I was the top salesman in the country. I mean, it was as simple as that. Hi there, my name's Tony. Plain sailing after. Now, I was given the job by the Stockholm Conference, well, by Murray Strong, who was given the job by the Stockholm Conference, to set up the first major information system on the environment, and it was called the International Referral System on Sources of Environmental Information. Now, that's typical UN jargon, so it was reduced to IRS. So I became creator and director of IRS. And for a year and a half, I tried to sell IRS to governments all over the world. I got up to number 12. So I went to Dr. Tolga. Mustafa is a very intelligent and imaginative person, but he believes in the rules. He wasn't taking on the governments by changing the name that they had given in Stockholm. So I said to Mustafa, I can't do this. You just allow me to change the name. I've floated in competition among a lot of people. I've got the name that I want to change to, and if you permit me to do this, I will deliver whatever you want. He said, no way. I said, look, I'll take the responsibility. I'll tell the governments that it wasn't your fault. And the governing councils. And said, okay, go ahead and do it. So I changed the name from IRS, which completely confused the hell out of everybody I ever talked to. They didn't know I was coming from the tax people. And I changed it to Infoterra. It was plain sailing. From 10, I went to 130 countries, members, full members, active members, within a year and a half, 2 months. It means a lot to be able to talk. When you go to a cocktail party and you can't address a person by name, you turn to the next one whom you can. It's so much easier to talk to John than to talk to some convoluted sounding Indian, South Indian name, Swami, you know? So it's a given. We've got a complicated barrier we've set up to communication. If IUCN, people cannot pronounce IUCN. They trip all over it. And it's different in different languages. Now, you know, I was suggesting a name like Terra Viva, or something that represents, is instantly recognizable, is euphonic, it sounds good, it's hard to mispronounce. It's very easy to do that. It doesn't have to be Terra Viva. There are 200 names that I made a list of, and we could choose one. But if you're going to go through life as IUCN, there is no way you're going to be anything but a good secret. I don't think you have to do anything else. It's a silver bullet. The rest, as Vali said, would involve changing what we are. That's not acceptable. What is acceptable is being communicated to. And people who come and knock on your door or come up to you with a glass of wine and are unable to address you by name, I'm not going to talk to you. So that's my opinion, and I feel very strongly about it, and I've tried hard to bring about that change. It is difficult to change things in industry.
Tony.
Yeah, of course.
Well, since you mentioned the law program, I'd only like to add the information that IUCN was created as a scientific union. So in 10 years had no local legal component. Only 58 in Warsaw and Krakow, then we created on trial a little working group on legal affairs. So, but yes, first the scientist in IUCN was always thinking, yes, when we discover something new, when we think there is a need, policy and law should follow automatically. This hasn't worked. So we had to translate, and I had to learn a lot, we all had to learn a lot, to take in the new legislation or in proposals the scientific knowledge. We had to go to the colleagues and say, please give us the advice how we should deal with this. Also the word biodiversity has been, let's say, nearly created in the council meeting. I was reporting on a draft we started on genetic diversity. And then I don't know the name for the moment, the keeper of the zoological garden in London, he was a council member, he said, genetic diversity, that sounds not very good. Use the word biological diversity. And so we changed. So you see, this is the development and also the contact between science and